Again, we talked about how SEO used to be a skill and maybe it's not anymore, and you wouldn't hire a marketer who doesn't have data skills.
Exactly. So the same way that I wouldn't hire a marketer who wasn't comfortable with data, like data and analytics. You wouldn't hire a marketer who's not comfortable, starting to use AI. It's just our profession is constantly being disrupted by tech.
Welcome to Insight On, the podcast for leaders who need technology to deliver real business results. No fluff, no filler, just the clarity you need before your next big decision. Hi, welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Jillian Viner. Today, we're going to do a deep dive on the impact of AI in MarTech with insights from Insight CMO Hilary Kerner. Welcome.
Thank you, Jillian. Thanks for having me.
So Hilary, you're a great person to have this conversation with because you've been in tech a long time before you came to Insight. You were the leader at IBM and you were very heavily involved in Watson. So I feel like AI has been a big part of your world for a long time, but maybe not as impactful today as it was before, or is it kind of the same and everyone else is just kind of catching up to the excitement around AI that you've known for years?
You know, it's really kind of incredible to see how far it's come. So I led marketing for Watson, which at the time, back in 2012 was really just open domain Q&A. So kind of like a precursor to today's LLMs. So it's really, really remarkable to see how far the technology has come in such a short time. And at the same time, what has not changed, which is, people are still trying to figure out how and what to do with it.
This feels like maybe the first time, maybe not, that marketing has had a pretty significant seat at the table when it comes to technology decisions. Would you agree with that? Or is that maybe not as true as we want to think it is?
It's interesting. I think the CIO-CMO relationship has always been a really important one. And that is because our profession is constantly kind of being disrupted by tech, whether it's new channels with which to engage our audience or new tech that our buyers are using to engage with us. I think about kind of early in my career, the shift to data and analytics. Suddenly, all of these different things about your customers became knowable. You could instrument different touch points and get data about how well your tactics were performing. So the CIO relationship became a really, really important one because CMOs suddenly had to, navigate the world of enterprise tech, and you needed to have a really good partner in the C-suite to help you adopt and maintain and, roll out that tech. It's really no different now. If anything, that relationship has just become much more important, and I think the CIOs need the CMOs. They need marketing at the table to help actually define the roadmap. And that's probably the piece that's a little bit different and incredibly exciting is, it's gone beyond marketing kind of giving their requirements to the CIO to actually helping to define the roadmap for the company. And I think that's, because marketing is one of the very first places where AI is causing real disruption and represents real opportunity for companies.
Yeah, big time. I mean, content generation is like one of the biggest use cases for generative AI, and you think about the enterprise. Generative AI has really forced a new type of IT literacy for folks outside of the IT space. I mean, you mentioned data analytics and other MarTech tools that have come about that we've, had to get a little bit more up to speed on our technology, but maybe not quite to this extent. When you think about the relationships that you have across the business, particularly on the IT side, they're getting a lot of different requests, requirements, demands. Is there something that you wish they knew or understood about marketing that would help make the relationship better or make the IT decisions easier?
That's a really great question. I think it's always helpful when any of your key stakeholders in the C-suite understand your function. It just, makes it easier to partner together. When I think about, what I wish the CIOs understood, I think all leaders are being told right now, AI is going to be this amazing path to productivity, and it's going to be this amazing opportunity to save a lot of money. And it certainly can be those things. It can be a path to productivity, and it can and should be. You should see cost savings as a result of that. But it's really much more than that. And if you are only kind of looking at how can I save money and make my people more productive, you are missing the sort of big transformative opportunity. And so I think an understanding of marketing processes is going to be really, really important for CIOs if they're going to help us build out the agentic capability that we need to really help our marketers. So for example, some of the use cases that we're looking at are just these sort of like soul-crushing administrative tasks that are a necessary and important part of our job, but no marketer likes to spend their time on. Actually automating those, transforming those, that's going to be where the kind of real power comes in. So I think CIOs understanding kind of the basic tasks of marketing is going to be really important.
I think those use cases, those discussions are so interesting because you are kind of putting yourself in a vulnerable position in those conversations and sort of rolling back the curtain on like, here's the stuff that we get buried in day to day, and here's the annoying tasks that we have to complete. And for someone in a different department to kind of witness that, I mean, I know we all have those mundane, as you soul-sucking work, but you're kind of showing them like, here's the gross part of our day-to-day. How can you help us make this better? So it is a little bit of vulnerable, and they're kind of getting to see the inner workings of marketing and some of our processes. I guess, when you're having those conversations, is there any time where someone's reacted of like, wow, I can't believe you guys have to go through all these steps just to do this one thing?
Oh, I wish. I wish we were creating greater appreciation for some of the things our marketers go through. No, I think, the thing that stands out to me is how some of the biggest traction we're getting are around some of like the least sexy use cases. So, I mean, you hear AI adoption and everyone's mind immediately goes to content generation. And I think that's just, the nature of generative AI. It's very easy and relatable to think, I'm going to use this to write copy or, to create images or video. And that's fine. But I think about, one of the use cases we're exploring where we, one of the things that we do, it being in the channel, is we have to provide our partners with proof of performance. This is incredibly important, and understanding the ROI of the dollars that our partners are investing in us is incredibly, incredibly critical. But it is also this really arduous task where each partner has different requirements. It's all that information is buried in contracts that differ. The types of things that they want for proof are very, very different, and collecting that information and understanding the differences and figuring out the timing, that's a task. That's something that marketers have to spend their time on. And that's time that is spent not engaging with customers or looking at the campaigns. So that's a great use case for AI. So I think that's been, a really important part of our early success, is having use cases like that bubble up from the team so that they kind of have a say in where and how and where we use AI.
Every company, I'm sure, has an experience like that. You're doing some piece of work on a regular basis that is arduous, it's soul-sucking, it's tedium. And it just raises the question of like, is this work that I like doing? Can this be done a better way? Let's go explore that. So I think that's a great approach. Now, we talked about how, you'd like the other business leaders to understand a little bit more about the processes to make those decisions easier. There is onus on us as marketers, just as we've done all throughout the years, to keep up with the technology. This is true for other lines of businesses as well, other leaders across finance, sales, legal. What do you think these leaders need to be aware of in order to, position themselves for success in the future? How do they need to be thinking about this disruptive generative AI revolution?
Well, I think about for us, ironically, AI skills are good and important. You need to understand what model to use for what. You need to kind of understand what's available to you. I think the things that it is requiring of us are to actually make us better marketers. So the skills that you need to build are actually marketing ones more than tech skills. I think because we can understand our audiences better than ever before, because whether that's, we've talked in our marketing team about building synthetic personas so that we can sort of interrogate our prospective customers,
get the really harsh feedback,
and better tailor our tactics accordingly. Because you can understand your customers, better than ever. It really makes the skills around building belief in a company, a product, or brand, and motivating a buyer to take action, that has never been more important. And that has not changed. It's just become more important now that the tech is, helping us. Likewise, I think, our judgment has become much more important. So now that AI can generate content, knowing what to ask for, what kind of content do you need to plug into the journey, at what point, what is actually going to motivate a buyer to move to the next stage of their buying journey. And then knowing whether or not the content that you got back, whether it's good or not, like that judgment has become so much more important. So I know, I can't speak for every profession, but I can say that, for marketing, the skills that have become even more critical are marketing skills.
Yeah, that's fair. We did do some experimentation with the synthetic personas. We bunched it up against some ad creative that we did, and we're really just hounding the AI to keep challenging us and give us, alternatives and different options. At the end of the day, we realized that the content that we had, the tagline that we had, was really the strongest one there. So it's very validating. Like, the AI isn't always right. It's going to help, I think, refine, but you can't take it at face value and forget that, hey, we as marketers or, any leader in a different line of business, we have the expertise. We need to lean on that.
It's a really powerful brainstorming tool.
Yeah. I want to talk about something a little bit controversial in a way. We're talking about the use of AI. A lot of companies are being very bold about saying that we have an AI approach. We've even heard that from our own CEO. It hasn't always gone well. The feedback has been a little rough from critics, and fairly so. But, AI is obviously an important tool for us to adopt to and adapt, especially being in tech. We know that's the future. But from your perspective, what do you think is the right approach? When we say AI first, what are we really saying when we put those words out there?
Well, I know for Insight, we mean human-led and AI-empowered. So how can AI assist and empower us? But it's about how can we use AI to achieve scale, to help free up people to do work that is more meaningful.
Not collecting pop.
Yeah, not collecting proof of performance. And I think we're kind of seeing that across the different functions, not just in marketing.
How do you move the skeptic on that?
Well, I can speak to what's worked within our team, or what I think is starting to work. I think it's really important that the transformation happen organically. And there are always going to be people on the adoption curve who are more enthusiastic about technology than others. And I think letting them take the lead and kind of build momentum and consensus is like one of the best things you can do for your organization. I can mandate it. Everyone has to use this. But I think that having it come from the grounds up, especially as we're defining use cases and prioritizing how and where to put it first, I think having that come from within the team is incredibly powerful. I think as a leader of people, your first and most important responsibility is to your team. And I think about the marketers on our team, and I want them to have skills that are competitive. I want them, to have their time at Insight be time spent where they're doing really great, exceptional work, and where when they go out into the job market to whatever's next, like they have competitive skills. So I feel a really deep responsibility to them to make sure that I'm providing opportunities, for practice. And so I think having kind of that kind of mindset and then letting it build organically has been really important and effective for us. I think we're starting to see some real momentum. I also think leaders shouldn't be afraid of resistance. I mean, I think within the resistance, or at least I think we should make time to understand how and where it's coming from. Because a lot of times there are very real, concerns in there that, maybe this isn't the best use case. Maybe we should start somewhere else. I think taking time to kind of understand that is also valid.
And it sounds like you're letting the teams drive those use cases. Trying
to, yeah. I mean, I think we can always go faster. But if the team can identify the spaces where they think it's going to make the biggest impact, of course, we should start there.
Yeah, that change curve can be challenging to adapt. We talked to Joyce Mullen a bit about this as well, and she's an ambitious person, so she always wants to go faster. AI is definitely one of those areas where it feels like leaders are ahead of employees. Mm-hmm. In terms of those AI champions, because that's really what you're talking about when you're talking about that groundswell, where are you seeing that from the most?
I think on our team, it's the people who, are maybe using the technology in their personal life, now having permission to bring it into work. So, I'm seeing it there. Certainly your content teams are doing really interesting things with it. I think if I look at our guild, which is the internal group that we've started in marketing to kind of collect all the enthusiasts and help define and prioritize the use cases, it's really a mix across all the different functions. I was really pleased to see that.
Functions across marketing that are coming?
Functions across marketing, yeah.
That's interesting. So it's really being driven by people who are maybe experimenting on their own and being able to do that in the workplace. I feel like we've seen something like that before, where tech kind of started personally and kind of came in. I mean, you've been around the tech industry for many, many years. And I'm even thinking back to you talking about skills development. A couple years ago, you couldn't apply for a content role if you didn't have SEO on your resume. And so now it sounds like SEO optimization is probably passé, and now it's all about, can you do a good prompt engineering?
Exactly. So the same way that I wouldn't hire a marketer who wasn't comfortable with data, like data and analytics. You wouldn't hire a marketer who's not comfortable, starting to use AI. It's just our profession is constantly being disrupted by tech. I remember a time earlier in my career where the conversation was about Web 2.0. We millennials have seen the rise of the internet, and then, it was Web 2.0. And I remember at IBM, they did a summit. They brought in somebody to talk about podcasting, blogging, YouTube, and Twitter, which were all relatively new at the time. And, we're kind of sitting there thinking about how can we embrace these new channels and figure out new and different ways to engage our buyers. And you too, right? The same way that SEO wasn't a profession, a decade ago, and it is now. I think we're going to see the same thing with AI, but I think the important point is that we're just not strangers to that kind of disruption. It is always changing. There are always going to be new and different channels. There are always going to be new and different tools that we have to understand our audiences. There's always going to be ways to streamline tasks and make them easier. But the core skills, understanding the customer, understanding, what's going to motivate them to take action, that has not changed. And if anything, as I was saying, it's more important.
So as a leader, you're working across different age groups, different demographics. Maybe their comfort with new technologies at different stages. Their expertise is at different stages. How are you coaching or even just seeing the natural integration of AI into their workflows? Are there certain age groups where you kind of need to put some training wheels on the AI because you don't want them to become too reliant, and there are others where you're please just try this out?
That's a really good and important question. I think early career professionals really need to give themselves the experience of building the skills that, maybe we millennials learned earlier on in our careers. I think, practicing your writing is really, really important. That's what makes you a good editor. And that editing, that judgment is really critical to put you in a position to evaluate what you're getting back from AI. I think AI is allowing us to think more like creative directors than it is like copywriters. But if you've never been a copywriter, you can't be a really effective creative director. I think earlier career professionals need to kind of take the time to practice those skills, and they need to kind of practice working with AI. They need to do both. If anything, it's a little bit harder, but that's going to be really, really important, especially as they kind of build their own careers. I think that's where, maybe middle managers, later career professionals have a bit of an advantage because you have that foundation. And then now we have the new tech. So I think our responsibility is to make sure that we're mentoring our more junior employees so that even as AI is maybe automating some of those kind of tasks, they still know how to do them.
And with that career experience, you're having a stronger foundation to kind of test and validate. I mean, I mentioned earlier we use the synthetic personas to test our ad copy. At the end of the day, we're like, no, the ad copy we have is actually great, but it does take some experience to stand on your own and kind of say the AI is wrong. Are there situations where, maybe you've put something into AI and you've kind of challenged it or is like, that's nice, that's cute, but that's not what I was going for?
What you get out of AI is only as good as what you put in.
True.
So your prompts need to be really precise. You really need to be thoughtful about the role that you want AI to take on. The context is really important. And then I just go back to you need to deeply understand your customer and the customer journey. Otherwise, the AI is not going to be as helpful a tool as, we maybe think.
Yeah. My favorite hack is telling the AI to create its own prompt.
Oh, I've not tried that.
Yes. You just do a brain dump on it and let it rewrite it and then validate that it's actually spitting out what you intended and make adjustments. And then it's got a really clean prompt. Some people are becoming a little bit more sensitive to what they perceive as AI generated. They're starting to kind of call out on the internet where they think something is AI. It's got the rocket ship emoji or too many M dashes, which is heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. I love M dashes.
How do you leverage these tools in a way that builds trust, not just with your employees, but also with your customers?
That's a really good question. It's interesting. I have talked to people who have like a real problem with AI generated content and will spend like time, and I don't know, that's a great use of time trying to figure out whether or not something was generated by AI. I remember when, we started to use marketing automation tools and you could suddenly generate emails automatically. Like the big complaint people had about them is that they weren't personalized. Well, with AI, you can get over that. And more than that, it's, you can engage with a company or a brand, and it might not even be a person. It could be an agent. I think, humans are very predictable in that they're willing to accept a lot in exchange for value. So, we give our data away every day in exchange for, value, personalization, good experiences. I think the same thing is going to hold true as long as we're using AI in a way that is in service of our customers. How and, why something was generated is maybe less important.
We know that AI has a lot of potential to drive productivity, efficiency. We actually talked about that earlier, how it's going to improve our processes for developing and collecting all those pieces that we need for the proof of performance. Is there another outcome for generative AI that you're particularly excited about?
I look forward to our marketers having more time to be creative and less time bogged down. I mean, I think about the feedback that I get from our team and the things that, people complain about. I look forward to the day when AI can solve, most of that and they can spend their time on the things that they enjoy about their jobs the most.
Which is refreshing because I think a lot of people in the creative community have really felt the threat of AI taking over the fun jobs and leaving them to do the mundane. But the focus that you're seeing, at least under your leadership and here at Insight, is no, we're going to have AI take the mundane so that we can be the creative.
Totally. I mean, it is a little bit threatening. Change is scary, right? But our jobs have always been changing. Marketing is always evolving as technology does, and I don't think it can replace true judgment, true human creativity. I don't think we have anything to worry about from the perspective of not being able to do the parts of our job that bring us joy.
Now, you travel a lot. You're at a lot of events. You're talking to a lot of peers or leaders of other businesses. Kind of what's your pulse on the broader environment? Where are people at in their AI adoption?
Well, everybody is talking about it, right?
Sure.
I mean, I was at Cannes, which is a great gathering of CMOs, and you could not go to a panel where AI and marketing was not touched upon. And that is because we are not strangers to tech and to transformation. And I think marketers have always done a really good job of kind of being out in front. So it's not unsurprising. I walked away thinking that our team is in a really good place in terms of some of the use cases that we're taking a look at, and some of the ways that we're using the technology. They're unique, and that's good. I felt really good about the progress our team is making.
What do you think's been the difference?
I think it could be that it's coming from the team, from the people who are closest to the work, who are specialists in their roles. I think I hope some of it's coming from them having the kind of permission and the freedom to, go do that. I think it very much helps that I have a CEO who's incredibly supportive of the transformation and is giving us access to the resources we need, whether it's, technical resources or even time to go fast and fail fast and try things out. I think having the support of your leadership team, I think about my partners. I have very, very good partners in our CFO and our CIO, and I think that's been really important too.
Do you think this is one of the rare instances? I'm saying rare, maybe not rare, but often smaller companies get the advantage of being small so they can move fast. But you just mentioned a lot of resources that are big resources that maybe those smaller companies don't have. Are you seeing a difference in progression or adoption between smaller companies and larger companies? Do you think that's because of the resourcing, or is it just kind of different from one to the other?
Well, now we're getting into, I think we're going to see the role of the channel shift. So I think this is a place where Insight can really step up and help our customers. We can make this very advanced technology much more accessible to smaller companies who don't have in-house IT teams, because right now you really do need in-house IT teams. I mean, these kind of built for purpose models that you can get off the shelf are good, like functionally, but if you're really going to make a difference within your organization, you need to be embedding this technology within your existing enterprise stack. And you need technical skills to do that. So I think about some of the projects that we're running with our customers where, we're kind of starting small with maybe something very specific, and getting it embedded, having the customer see results, and then, earning the right to do more. I think there's a very real role for channel partners to play in helping drive that adoption with smaller companies that lack the skills and expertise. I mean, we see that as a very common reason why AI deployments fail, because they don't have there's a gap around the expertise or the skill in-house.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of integrations and things you have to consider. When you're looking at the future of your talent pipeline, again, we talked about how SEO used to be a skill and maybe it's not anymore, and you wouldn't hire a marketer who doesn't have data skills. How do you see the roles in marketing or even just across the org changing because of generative AI?
Well, certainly I think there's an expectation to be much more AI literate. I look for marketers to have a point of view on how and where they should use it. If somebody has a strong point of view around, like, I would not use AI for this, I think that's okay and fair too. I just, want to see that it's considered. I think it's really, really important that, marketers are curious. We have to be, asking questions about our customers, about the landscape. So somebody who has a hunger to understand, the technology and what it can be doing for them, I think that's even more important than having kind of the skill set already established.
What's been the most exciting part for you? Like, have you seen a shift in employee attitudes or even in attitudes across your peers about generative AI? Has there ever been a moment where you're like, oh, this is disappointing, or no, this is actually quite amazing?
I think there's a lot of optimism. That was kind of the overarching feeling that I left Cannes with. The sense that we're kind of all on the precipice of a really big moment, and that that's a really exciting time to be a marketer. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to kind of step up and lead and define that future. So I'm very optimistic about that. There's certainly parts of my job that I would love to have agentic capability to solve for. I'm still waiting for the day that I can build an agent to help me with my email and like put things into folders for me. I'm sure someone's going to listen to this and tell me exactly how I can do that. So yes. I very much hope that is the case. But I think it's an incredibly exciting time, and I am very, very excited to see kind of what comes next.
Well, on that note, I have to ask you before we go, do you have a favorite use case, something that you've like really just honed in on that's kind of changed the way you live or work?
At work, I think the use cases that our teams have come up with are really cool. I mean, the way that we're looking at doing mass personalization at scale and like true one-to-one engagement with customers with custom content, that's going to be a really, really cool one. Automating some of the things that I know just really bug people on our team, like that's a really cool one. And, the holy grail for me is that inbox organization.
The email summary is not cutting it for you?
No, I like my email summary. I like the prioritization, but I aspire to be an inbox zero person, and I'm not quite there yet, but I'm sure AI can help me.
Well, good luck with that.
We'll
want to know how you achieved it. Maybe that's going to be your 2025 Someday. Goal. Awesome. Hilary, it was so great to talk to you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much. This is an important conversation.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Insight On. If today's conversation sparked an idea or raised a challenge you're facing, head to insight.com. You'll find the resources, case studies, and real-world solutions to help you lead with clarity. If you found this episode to be helpful, be sure to follow Insight On, leave a review, and share it with a colleague. It's how we grow the conversation and help more leaders make better tech decisions. Discover more at insight.com. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are of those of the host and the guest and do not necessarily reflect on the official policy or position of Insight or its affiliate. This content is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional or legal advice.